Hello, and welcome to the Nerdy Folks Podcast, a conversation about the nerdy things we love and the things that matter most. My name is Matthew Seipel Anderson, and I am flying solo today. Normally, I'm joined by my wife, Katie Seipel Anderson. We are the hosts of the Nerdy Folks Podcast. We love this community, and we're glad you're with us today. Well, today, I'm talking about time. We're kicking off a new series. It's going to be a lot of fun because time travel is like so crazy and so much fun, and it's a part of so many different sci-fi shows, series, fantasy shows. It's all over the genre, and it's going to be just a blast to dig into it. First off, though, I need to share some highlights from a recent trip I took to Twin Cities Convention. Yeah, if you were there, you knew it was a ton of fun. I got to see Ashley Eckstein, voice of Ahsoka from the Clone Wars cartoon series. The cast of Demon Slayer was there, along with a whole slew of anime people, anime voice actors. So if you were an anime fan, like Twin Cities Con was the place to be. We saw tons of great cosplayers. And when I say we, I really do mean we. This was a fun trip because I got to take along a whole bunch of teenagers with me from my youth ministry, and they volunteered at the table and hung out, and we actually connected with Inner City Church of Minneapolis, the Life Center. It's actually called the ICCM Life Center now, and we went out and did some ministry, handed out food, clothes on the street. So we just had a fun weekend of hanging out at the con and doing some ministry and being a blessing to the city of Minneapolis. So thanks so much for Caleb De Laurentiis for taking us out. We actually brought out a party bus. It was so much fun. It was like a thing for teenagers. We played games, and like I said, gave out hot dogs and food, and it was fun. Back to Twin Cities Con, we saw some amazing cosplayers. There were the classic, Star Trek, Star Wars, families dressed in total cosplay, which is always fun to see. There were people hot gluing their costumes up in the hallways because they broke, in travel. But it was just it was fun just to meet all the cosplayers and talk to them about how they made their costumes and all that stuff. A few highlights. I saw a guy in a Chewbacca costume, but it was 10 feet tall. He had stilts on and just looked so huge and imposing. It was amazing. But I think the one that really takes the cake for me was this duo. These two guys that were dressed like Doc Brown and Marty McFly from Back to the Future.
Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott!
Yeah, these guys were amazing. And you gotta love Great Scott, Doc Brown. So the Doc Brown character, he had a flux capacitor that actually lit up and was cool. He had the hair, the look. He was about the right age. Just nailed the character. And the guy who dressed as Marty McFly, he was next level. So when I saw them, it just tripped me out because this dude was floating down the aisle on a hoverboard. If you remember Back to the Future 2, Marty McFly trades in his skateboard for a hoverboard because he goes to the future. It was so cool. And how he accomplished this was he had mannequin legs in kind of wide leg jeans and sneakers and a hoverboard that were attached to his waist. And then his actual legs, he had on black tights and black roller skates. So at first, your eye was just drawn to the pink hoverboard and the light colored jeans and the white sneakers. And so you just saw him hovering. It was amazing. But, closer look, you realized, he's just rolling around on his roller skates. It was next level. So kudos to you guys for the amazing job cosplaying. And of course, one of the big highlights was getting to meet all of you. If you're listening and you were at Twin Cities Convention, thank you for coming out. Thank you for stopping by the booth. We had lots of fun just playing games, really. We had a lot of games at the booth this year, and just met people, handed out cards, promoted the podcast, and it was fun to talk to everyone. And some of you on Saturday were interviewed by me. So when I interviewed people, I asked them 3 questions. I said, where would you go if you could go anywhere into the past? Similarly, where would you go if you could go into the future? And finally, where would you go if you were forced to time travel, but you knew it was going to be a one-way trip? Where would you go? Where would you land? So here's my first interview from Twin Cities Convention. So I'm hanging out at Twin Cities Convention with
Jace.
And Andy.
Amazing. Well, thanks guys for stopping by the booth. And you want to answer some questions about time travel that we're going to use for some episodes coming up?
Yeah, bet.
So where would you time travel into the past?
Ooh. I don't know. I feel, well, okay, it depends on like the butterfly effect. Like if I travel to the past, is it going to affect the future?
Let's say yes.
Then I wouldn't travel in the past.
What if you could go and just be a silent observer for a time and then come back and there would be no butterfly effect?
Is this like a fun, happy sort of like time travel, or is it like the history is the same as it is in real history?
I'm just thinking of it as time travel tourism.
Okay. Yeah, the past isn't a very nice place to people who are different, and so it's always a difficult thing to sort of decide. I don't know. I think going back to ancient Greece would be fun, seeing all the...
I want to go back to like before the Shibuya incident.
All right, how about if you had to go into the future? Where do you think you'd go into the future, and how far would you go?
Where would I want to go in the future? That's a good question. I think I'd want to go like really far, like after I'm like dead or whatever, you know, and just like see like the technological advancements that they've made, like thousands of years into the future, and like if like climate change has made the world explode, like, you know, like see how we're doing in the future.
Yeah, just peek our head in and be like, oh, or like, whoa, we fixed it, we did it, guys.
Yeah.
Very cool. If you had to go somewhere and you had to time travel, it was like a wizard being like, I'm going to make you time travel. And it's like a one-way trip. You have to go past or future. Where would you choose to end up for the remainder of your life?
Does it have to be outside of our lifetime, or...
You know, I had thought of that you could cheat and say, I want to just go to tomorrow, and, you know.
Well, do we stay in the same like location? Oh.
Any location, anytime.
Okay, well, I'm going like really far into the future where I can be on like Mars. I think that'd be really fun.
I think you would die.
Well, in the future, we'll have like made it so we can live on there. And we won't have ruined it yet with climate change.
An optimist. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think I would go 100 years from now, just to see what it's like.
Would you go, Joe?
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, thanks so much for hanging out, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, enjoy the con.
Thank you, you too.
Yeah, so thanks for being on the show. It was seriously so fun, and I have a bunch of interviews that I can't wait to share. I asked myself this question, where would I go? And there are so many options, but here's one option I came up with. I think it would be really fun to go back in time and hang out with the French voyageurs, or voyageurs, I don't know how to say that in French, voyageur. It would be fun to hang out with those guys around the Great Lakes here in the U.S., because I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota, right on the shores of Lake Superior, and it's an amazing place. I would love to see it before it was civilized. I would love to camp and just travel around, learn how to trap and hunt and stuff. It'd be like an adventure. You know, I never did Boy Scouts, so maybe I'd get to, you know, capture some of that. Also, it would be cool to hang out with them because, as far as I know, the voyageurs had much better relations with the native tribes than, for example, the British and the Spanish who came over. So it would be cool to also experience native culture at that time. If I could go into the future, I would choose to go far into the future and go to the North Pole to see if there's a city there. I've been reading recently about how they've been scanning the North Pole and they can see where ancient rivers have run. And I know that they find dinosaur bones at the North Pole because at one point the Earth was much warmer. So if climate change, like this last interview they mentioned climate change, if climate change continues and a lot of that ice melts and the climate does radically change, I know it will be a devastating thing, but I also think that life will go on, will adapt. They'll build new cities more inland or build dams and dikes. And I think if there was a landmass that appeared on the North Pole, they would probably build a city there, and it would be new and futuristic. I mean, I'm imagining like stargazing, nice warm glass building that's all futuristic, but at the North Pole where it's still super dark. I don't know, I think it could be amazing and really interesting to see what all happens. And I would love to hear your thoughts. If you're listening, go ahead, charge to the comments and write down where would you go into the past, where would you go into the future, and where would you go if you had a one-way ticket? That's a hard one for me because I wouldn't want to give up my family, so I think I would cheat and I would just go like one day into the future or one day into the past or something and just try to get around that one with a a little loophole. Speaking of loopholes and wormholes and ways to time travel, I looked up some different ways to time travel, at least in fiction, and I found a really nice, succinct article on a blog called Almost an Author, titled 8 Types of Time Travel. And here are some of them. Type 1 is the anything goes time travel. And this is like the Back to the Future, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, just like more fun, loosey-goosey, not as worried about the butterfly effect, like one little change has massive. No. It's just simple. Like you just go back in time, you have a fun story, and you move on. The next type was the branch reality. And this is more the approach that Marvel is taking, where if you were to travel, for example, into the future or the past, you're really just creating a branch and creating a new timeline. You're not truly changing the original past. Time's always moving forward, even if you're traveling in time. So it's a little trippy, but it makes sense. Another type is more related to science. And this states that, if you were traveling like through space very quickly, you could experience time differently than people back on Earth. And so you could move into the future, but you couldn't necessarily go back into the past. So that's an interesting one. There are some others that involve the end of the story basically being the cause for the beginning of the story. You see this in different Star Trek episodes, in the Terminator movies. It's sort of like the future influences the past, and then the past moves forward in a different way, but then the ending ends up... Yeah, so it's crazy. It actually is a bit like another type of time travel, the time loop. And this is where characters relive the same day or the same period of days over and over and over again. And usually the story involves they have to live it over and over until they accomplish some goal, and then they break free from the time loop, something like that. And then there are some more trippy ones, like your mind gets a glimpse of the future. It's kind of time travel. Or maybe you can just see the future, things like that. So there are lots of different ways, and I'm sure there are things that this list doesn't include. These are just some of the really common ones. So maybe if you're in the comments, what would your preferred time travel rules be? Would you want to be an agent for change in the past and have your life in the past really matter and really affect the future? Or would you just like to kind of be a time tourist who could go, hang out, have an ice cream cone, see some historical person or event or place, and then come back and not have it really matter too much? Be curious to know that. I know all of us would probably like to change a thing or two about their life. And that is a tough thing because life is what it is, right? It's set. We can't time travel at this point. And as Gandalf says, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. And I want to leave you with a final encouragement to take Master Gandalf's advice. All you have to do is decide what to do with the time that is given you. Wherever you find yourself today, whether you like it or you hate it, I want you to just think about where you are, come to grips with where you are, make your peace with it, and look at how you can move forward. And, if you want a biblical perspective, like we like to bring in faith on this show, there's a scripture that says the righteous one will live by faith. There's another scripture that says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Life, whether you're a believer in God or not, does require some faith. You have to have faith that you can move forward, that you can be an agent for change in your own life. And so that's my encouragement today. If you're really discouraged about where you are, just take Gandalf's advice and realize that all I have to do is just decide how to move forward from here. And I think if you do that, it will give you some hope and some encouragement that things can change, things can get better, and you can do it. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. Can't wait to be sharing more interviews from Twin Cities Convention and talking about more wacky time travel. The Loki finale is just around the corner, so there's going to be so much to talk about on the next episodes. Thanks so much for listening. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.